259 skid steer.
What's the width on
The skid steer?
that? Yeah, how wide?
7.5. I think that's the width mine. And
Mini excavator.
The mini S.
8, yeah. Yeah. Well, I can get smaller too. Home Depot runs 3 tons. You can fit in your back pocket. So.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Phone number, gotta have a phone number.
We got them. I got them right here.
I put a couple cards on each table.
Yeah.
But go ahead and say it so they have it.
810-241-9433. Yep. Any other questions? I'll do brush clearing too, logs. If they're already down, I will not cut logs or trees down. If they're out in the open, I'll cut them down, but if they're by a house, I will not touch them. But I will haul them off or, dig out the stumps, stuff like that.
How far out are you booked?
Right now, a month and a half. But, for the right price. Ben, thank you for letting me speak. If you guys have any more questions, I'll be around. Yes, sir.
Rough idea to tear down a 2-car garage.
What do you say?
Rough idea to tear down a 2-car garage.
We'll talk to you afterwards.
And speaking of garage, I'll just say this. I'll never forget, I was hot and fired up. I had somebody ready to buy my personal home years ago. I already had plans from the proceeds. I'm ready to rock, ready to go. The lender's like, hey, I need the insurance from your buyer. And the buyer says, I can't get it because that garage is leaning. And I was not gonna let the proceeds of this sale get hung up in limbo because of this leaning garage that maybe I would fix it. He didn't care, I don't care. I needed somebody quick to demo that thing and get it out of there so it's no longer an insurance issue. You never know when you're going to be glad that you got a reliable excavator, somebody to demo and haul some stuff off. When money's on the table, you don't want to stop it from flowing because of something silly. And for me, that day, that was something silly. And so keep Wyatt's number handy. I know that there's others that do other services, moving services, hauling services. But to get it torn down, get it dug up, you have another person that you call.
Basements, footings, crawl spaces, I'll dig all those too. All the dirt off, every time make it look nice and clean, topsoil, seed. So. Yep, we can do those too. Yep. You try to tear one out and put a new one in?
How much of a ballpark something like that over?
I mean, it just all depends on what you do. We'll talk later about it.
Absolutely.
So. Okay. Yeah, I think a cross space. Yep. I just did one in Fenton. Yep. So. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you for the time.
Thanks, Wyatt.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Bring this back down for the short guy. We got Bernard going to introduce our main speaker tonight.
Who here is loving the interest rates right now? The lender raised his hand. Isn't that great? I said, who is loving? Why do we have Christmas bells, Lauren? Okay. I said, who is loving interest rates right now? I don't know about you, but there are certain deals that I was looking at even early last year that I was kind of on the fence of, like, oh, this cash flow is pretty decent. Maybe I'll wait and see what happens. And then interest rates have skyrocketed so high that every bit of margin that I thought I might capture in that transaction is gone. I've got to come up with supernatural, creative ideas for why that same property is going to be profitable based on current interest rates. And the reality is, there's very few solutions that have relevance when we're dealing with market and economic conditions like this. We're going to hear tonight from Jim Adelot, who for over 20 years has been mastering a strategy that I think is perfect for a time like this. I will say I engaged in his tutelage probably about 5 years ago, more than that, about 5 years ago, and helped structure the acquisition of a property so perfectly that it was by far one of the best transactions I've ever had in my life. And it's a practice and a strategy that's still employed today. And so without further ado, I want to bring forward Mr. Jim A-Lot. He'll tell you more about himself, but you're in for a treat, and this is going to be insight to help you to grow in this crazy market.
Can you guys hear me all right with the mic? Is that all right? 'Cause I just can't stand like right there. All right, we're going to get started. How many people have either seen me before or this is your first time? Would you raise your hand? Yeah, about half of you got it. Somebody got on the way home. It's great to be here. It's good to see old friends. It's good to meet new ones. One of the things that this has been in the works for a little over a year. I was supposed to come out a little over a year ago, and I got sick with the coronavirus, and we canceled, and we got pushed out, and then there was another conflicting date. So we've been trying to set this up for probably a little over a year, but it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. And we're going to get into some really interesting things when it comes to creative financing. Let's see where get our slides up. How many people are doing creative financing right now? Raise your hand. Get an idea of what you guys are doing. Anybody back here? Anybody that's only doing landlording? Raise your hand. Just landlording? Buy and holds? Fix and flips? Anybody in syndications? Anybody doing short sales? Starting to do short sales? Dealing with foreclosures? I don't really call them short sales. They should be called long sales. That's not this seminar. I've done all those. I'm a landlord as well. I've got 4 duplexes, a triplex, just bought 2 properties within 5 minutes of here, closed on them last month. So, you know, I've done a lot of those kind of deals. I think in 1 year in Shiawassee County, I did $1.5 million of fix and flips. And so I've done a lot of those kind of things. We're into syndications now. We're part of a 135-door unit down in Corpus Christi. And it's just passive. How many people here have a self-directed IRA? Okay. How many don't know what that is? That's okay, raise your hand, it's okay. So self-directed IRA is something that you might want to look into. I know Mike, you know about those. I'm not sure about Ed, I know Bernard does. But self-directed IRAs are really great because you can do deals in them with the properties. And when you get the money out after the regulation, it's tax-free. There's no income tax, there's no capital gains tax, and you can pass that on to somebody when you die. So that's a great way to create tax-free wealth as well. That's not what I'm here to tell you about, but I've done all that kind of stuff and a lot more. So looking forward to sharing with you tonight. We're going to talk about creative financing strategies, because that's really what my niche is. If you said, what is the most thing that you do, what's the number one strategy that you employ, and that's acquiring properties on creative financing. Now those creative financing deals could be subject twos. How many are doing subject twos? How many know what those are? Okay, so we take over the mortgage subject to the underlying mortgage. That's a great strategy now, because people that closed on homes 3, 5, 7 years ago, their interest rates are what? What are they? They're low. You pick up a property on sub 2 where you take over the financing subject to the underlying mortgage, you're paying a 3% interest rate, you turn around and move it at a 10, 11% interest rate, and you have a huge spread. So that's a great strategy as well. And I help students do that. We're going to talk primarily about a couple of things. We're going to talk about options. Options is really what 90% of what I do is. And that's what I love to do. I help people, especially when they're new and they get started, put $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 in their bank account in 30 days or less. And I have students that have done it in a lot less time than that. So it's not really anything that is hard to master. It's actually a very easy strategy. How many wholesalers are in the room? Raise your hand. Okay, just a few. How many know what wholesale is? So wholesale is where we put a property under contract, we wholesale the contract to an end buyer. Make sense? And we make a profit off that. I do that with lease out. Mike, when he walked in, he said, I've been banging the wall for the last 4 days, walleye fishing. So, you know, you can do that. Oh, I wasn't supposed to tell anybody. The reason I ask is this, is because people who want to get started in real estate investing, and maybe you're new, and that's great, because I sat in a room almost identical to this 21 years ago. I knew nothing. Nothing about real estate. And people are afraid of risk. They don't have money. Maybe they're tired of rat race. I was working 60 hours a week. I spent 22 years in the corporate world. I'm a double E, school double E. I spent 21 years as a permanent electromagnetics engineer. So I'm actually a recovering engineer. But I'll tell you this, I was tired of rat race. Okay? And you know what I mean by that. Been married 29 years, be 30 years this coming August. We've got 3 kids, they're adults. I am a full-time pastor, but I am a part-time real estate investor. And I pastor a church over in Swartz Creek. So I'm a national speaker, I coach, I have several hundred students around the country that I coach, and I help them do deals. And that's really what one of my passions as well. When I started this, I was living paycheck to paycheck, trying to make the month of the money match. Right? I always was doing my best to climb the corporate ladder only to find out it was against the wrong wall. Kind of like the train at the end of the tunnel. You see a light at the end of the tunnel, but it's a train coming the other way. And ultimately what moved us out here to Michigan was the company I worked for sold everything overseas and closed the doors basically overnight. And then I took an engineering position out here. And that was 25 years ago now. So I've been in Michigan for about 25 years. Just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was hungry for change. I wanted a business that didn't own me. That's really important. That was really, really important to me. And I learned that I can do this anywhere. I can do this in any market. I didn't have to have some specialized training, level of education. I don't know about you, but this is what was important to me. I wanted more free time. How many would like more free time? Okay. I like to travel. I wanted to be debt free. Spend some more time with, maybe you want to spend less time with your family. I don't know that. That's okay. All right. I like to wake up when I'm done. Nothing screaming in my ear telling me I've got to get up, especially go make money for somebody else. Right? These are the little things. I like to order from the left side of the menu. My last name is Adelon. I do like buffets. But when I go to a restaurant, I got to tell you a funny story, because we're going Friday night. How many have been to the English Inn, South Olathe? Nobody? How many have heard of the English Inn? Oh man, it was owned by the president of Oldsmobile. It's now a bed and breakfast. It's an English tutor. You can stay there. They have like a 5-star restaurant. It's phenomenal. You really go to someplace special? Go to the English Inn. So here's the story. About 10 years ago, my mom, my mother-in-law, both widows, came up after church one Sunday. We went there for Mother's Day dinner. And we're sitting around the table. I'm sitting here. My mother-in-law's here. My mom, my wife at the end of the table, my kids. And let me borrow this. And my mother-in-law is sitting there, and I'm to the right. She's looking at the menu. And she looks over and she leans over and she goes, a little pricey here, isn't it, Jim? And her name's Gertrude. I said, Gert, I haven't worked as long as hard as I have to worry about the price of anything. And she didn't either. I'm telling you, she went to town. But when I say ordering from the left side of the menu, I don't want to go to a restaurant, look at the right side, and look at the prices and go, oh, I guess I'm having chicken again. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's those little. How many people have ever been bitten by an elephant here? Anybody stung by a mosquito? Who's been stung by a mosquito? See, it's the little things that count. And you'll get that on the way home. But I like to fish. I like to hunt. I want to live life. I wanted my life back. That's my wife. We like to travel. We like Florida, we go to Alaska. I like fishing salmon derbies, that's a biggie for me. I got a salmon boat, I like to go out on a big pond. That's my girl, she's 18, she's an adult, it's my youngest. And that's when she was 9. So this is about 10, not quite 10 years ago. That's her first salmon. And there's a reason why I show you that picture. Not because of how cute she is and that beautiful smile. But that's on a Wednesday morning. We got up and said, what are we going to do today? Weather looks great. Fish are hitting. Let's go hit the water. There's nobody at the fish cleaning station. There's nobody at the boat launch. Everybody's got their boats and their yachts parked, and we're out there fishing at a good time. Why? Because we can. Because I don't have to answer to somebody. Last year, we took a trip out west. We took almost a whole month and traveled out west. It was a daddy-daughter trip. I did that with my 2 older boys years before that. And we went out west. We went out to the Grand Canyon. That flipped my wife out right there, I'm going to tell you. But we're on the North Rim. And then we ended up heading over to San Diego. We got off out of the car in San Diego. We spent the whole day at the San Diego Zoo. And that night, at midnight, we got on a liveaboard. 85-foot liveaboard. We went 200 miles into the Pacific Ocean to a rock called Guadalupe Island, and we cage dived with great white sharks for 5 minutes. How many would like to do something like that? And not have to worry about paying for it. And not paying for it over months and months with credit cards. This is a fun little video. We're down in the cage. That's my fat face right there. But this is the kind of stuff, we're talking about 15, 18-foot sharks. This one wanted to get up and close and personal.
That's awesome.
And there's 4 people in this cage. This cage is 12 feet by 4 feet by 8 feet high. And we all got hookah lines down. You hear her screaming, right? So my daughter's here, me and this other couple, right? And I got the GoPro, and this shark comes at us, and everyone's freaking out. I'm like, yeah! I got the camera. So it's just, it's a special kind of time. But don't wait. You want to travel, some of you need to get on the ball. You want to travel. So when I talk about escaping the rat race, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. And what does it really take? Anything that you do is worth doing poorly until you get good enough to do it well. And I just studied this business for 3 years before I did it. I just wanted to, because I'm an engineer. I got to know everything. I had to get all the pieces right. I just wish I started 3 years earlier and took steps that I know I needed to do. Well, the secret's not a lesson in profundity. Successful people just take action. But here's the difference between people who are really successful and people who are not. They take massive, imperfect action. That's the difference. That's the distinction. Massive, perfect action. So the question is, what are you willing to do? What will you do to be uncomfortable for a while until you get good enough to do it well? And do what others aren't willing to do so you can have in the future what others can't. Can you take a month off? I mean, ask yourself this question. Can I take a month off and not have any impact on my business? Maybe you can. If you can, that's great. But if not, typically what people are doing, even if they own their own business, is they trade hours for dollars. Right? So what I'm going to talk about is kind of a passive income approach with creative financing. I will tell you it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. I don't know that there is really, I've done over 300 transactions like this. I am a licensed realtor in Michigan. I don't practice as a realtor typically. I'll sell a house for a friend or whatever, but that's just what I do. I wasn't an agent when I started. You don't have to be an agent, but I didn't want the approach where everything was going to be just kind of cookie cutter. And probably of the hundreds of deals, I can tell you that very few of them are identical. There's always a little bit of difference in them. And that's what makes it so interesting. So, do you need it? I don't know. How many think the market is changing? How many believe the market is changing? Do you guys have arms back there? Just asking for a friend. How many think the market is not changing? How many think it's static? How many don't understand the questions? You're right, it's a tough crowd. Lock the door, we're going to be here. Because I only have 3 hours to talk about it. That's it. Maybe you want to build your portfolio, save for retirement. You want to be safe. How about inflation? Deflation, stagflation. You got big government, business overreach, things encroaching upon us, right, as business owners. Maybe you can't qualify for financing. Maybe you want to buy a house on creative financing for yourself. You can do that too. I have a handful of students that just bought the course to have the documentation so they could go ahead and buy their own house on creative financing because they couldn't get a mortgage. No problem. They can do that. The guy who called in 08, the housing crash, this is an article from February 2023. I don't know if you can read that, but they're saying another 15% drop in home prices. How many look at data? How many are data people? Because I'm like a data person. Have you seen the Phoenix market? It's imploding. Imploding. They're predicting a 40% drop in Phoenix by the end of this year. Vegas, same thing. Florida, similar, right? So if you're looking to retire in Florida, wait about a year or so before you buy because you're going to get a great deal. These markets are imploding. A lot of the Sun Belt, a lot of the western states, Boise is absolutely a disaster. Places like that. I predict in our market, by the end of this year, I think we're going to see a 20% decrease. That's my prediction. Call me in a year and let me know what you think at the end of the year. Because I think that's where we're headed. And there's a lot of factors in that. And by the way, the market looks really, really, really good. You know why? Because there's no supply. There's very little supply. But as that begins to shift, what you're going to find is that people are going to try to hold out for a higher price. But as the market begins to shift, things are going to start to tumble. And when they start to tumble, they're going to tumble a lot quicker. This was through mortgage applications through February. This is you can look this data up, by the way. You can just type in Federal Reserve, and you can look up this data from the U.S. HUD department. These are new privately owned housing units, starts. That number has crashed even further since I put this slide together. But here's what I kind of want to talk a little bit about from a technical standpoint. When I look at doing deals, the majority of the deals that I like to do, and we'll get into this a little bit more, is I really like first and second time home buyer neighborhoods. If there is a way to make money very quickly, it's in those neighborhoods. It's not the McMansion on the block, right? It's the first and second time home buyer neighborhoods. Why? Can anybody tell me why? There's always a buyer for it. There's another good reason too. Because of inflation. Inflation is really hitting people hard. So when you look at, for example, when you look at the trend line of income versus what the price of a home is in a particular area, that's kind of the research I do before I start looking to do deals in that particular area. And every time that things have kind of taken a downturn when it comes to the market, right now the housing market has exploded to the point where the typical median income is not able to afford a house in any particular area. Do you understand what I mean by that? And that's why those first and second time home buyer neighborhoods are really, really good. And that's kind of where my niche is so you know. And of course it's all supply and demand, but unfortunately the typical supply and demand model does not explain what's going on today. We were talking a little bit earlier, and what we're experiencing right now, we have never experienced in the real estate market, ever. We've never seen this. There's a lot of different fissures that are kind of coming apart that are causing issues. For example, when you look at a typical supply and demand, this is months of inventory versus house prices, right? So months of inventory are fairly linear with the prices. But you see these flyers out here? Now these are existing homes, by the way. These are existing homes. What you're seeing is prices are falling in some places, even with low levels of inventory. I'm looking at properties in the Panhandle of Florida, and almost 80% of the properties in the Panhandle of Florida are all price cut, price cut, price cut, price cut. They're decreasing rapidly. So it doesn't follow the traditional supply and demand curve. You understand that? Because again, usually you think about supply and demand. As demand goes down, supply goes up. As supply goes down, demand goes up. But even with supply down, demand is really not quite what it appears to be. And that's the point I'm trying to make. So, this is in January. KB Homes, this is I believe the 6th largest home builder in the country, said that 68% or 2/3 of the home buyers they had walked away from their contracts in the first quarter, or excuse me, the last quarter. 68% canceled of 2022. This report came out in January. This would have been the 4th quarter of 22. 68% canceled their contracts. Okay, so I guess the question that I would just pose is, do you think that creative financing would be something that you could have in your toolbox? That's something that you can ask. So what is it? Let's talk about it. I only have 2.5 more hours, so I want to get through this quickly. We're going to talk about using option contracts that give you the right to purchase, not the obligation. And here's what I'd like you to do. If you have any questions, write them down. I want to do a Q&A after just to answer anything that you have. Okay? Is that fair? So, we use documentation that gives us control of the property without taking title to it. And it gives us the ability to potentially buy in the future, but not the obligation. That's what an option is. There's options in the stock market, you can option fuel, oil, whatever it is. Right? So we're literally optioning the property. So we're controlling it without ownership. Number 2 is another means of property rights, or we could say the term ownership, with little to no money used, of course, would be lease purchases, land contracts, subject tos. These are other means of control, but understand something. In a land contract and in a subject to, you are taking title. Right? You're on title, but not on a lease purchase. Lease purchase is not required for you to do that. Now, the difference between a lease option and a lease purchase, does anybody know? I know one of my students in the back probably knows. Does anybody know the difference between a lease option and a lease purchase?
Well, the option you don't have to buy.
Okay, and the lease purchase?
You're obligated.
You're obligated. Excellent. Even though I'm not on title, I'm obligated to buy on a lease purchase. And I do love that strategy. In fact, some owners want that strategy. They would prefer that because they never want to have to worry about the house again. They don't ever want to have to worry about getting it back. Okay? And that's a great thing to do. 2 things that I want to show you tonight revolve around options. There are multitudes of other ways in which we structure these things, but I'm going to try to keep it simple. And one is called a sandwich lease option. This is where we get equity. This is where we get big paydays. These are large paydays on properties that we don't own, we didn't take title to, we didn't rehab them. And I know some of you are going, now, how can that be? I'll show you. The other is a cooperative option. Now this is where we wholesale the option. This is quick money. The sandwich lease option is going to be big money. big paydays. The cooperative lease option is a quick payday. You're in and out of the deal, you don't stay in the deal. And I'm going to explain both of those to you. Is that okay? So, let's talk about a cooperative option. This is a very simple process. This is a property over in Lennon. We put it under contract and moved it for $189,900 to a, write this down, a near qualified tenant buyer. A near qualified tenant buyer. We're not looking for renters. Okay? You're not going to look for renters when you do this. All right? Tenant buyer came in. I think in this case they put $10,000 down. I had a 3.5% wholesale fee of $6,650. Tenant buyer, the seller, and myself all cooperated to get the deal done. That's what we call a cooperative lease option. Some call them link options. Some call them ACTs, which are assignment of contracts and terms. There's a number of different ways you can say it. They're all synonymous, so they all do the same thing. Got a $6,650 check. I didn't touch the house. I didn't clean the house. I didn't take title of the house. I did nothing. I wholesaled the house, and I made $6,650 without doing anything. Is that appealing to anybody? That kind of approach appealing? The very first one I did was 3 hours north on Lewis Lake. It was a log cabin. It was a $275,000 log cabin at the time. Probably $500,000 now. I never left my house. I spent 15 minutes marketing it from my house. I got a check for $7,000. I never left my house. That's what we're talking about. I have friends, and I know Mike knows, you know the Frenches, Keith and Shannon. Keith and Shannon, their entire business was in the 5 counties surrounding Baltimore, Maryland. But they lived in West Monroe, Louisiana. They just did it from their house, 1,200 miles away. Keith and Shannon, when they started the business, if you've heard their story, you probably know their story, Mike. They were so broke, they would sneak into motels and hotels that served breakfast buffets, and they would sneak in and eat and leave.
I still do that.
We're going to help you get out of there.
You might want to listen.
So, Keith and Shannon would spend between 4 and 6 months doing deals from their house. And the rest of the year, they would travel the world. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. So this is a very simple option deal. Now, how many wholesalers are in here again? Wow, that's it. So when you put a house under contract, you have a cash buyers list. You market it to that cash buyers list. They look at the property. Maybe they know you well enough to know that your numbers work. They're going to trust you on some level because you've built some business. And then you're going to move that for a cash, either a large EMD, because some people will do like a $5,000 EMD because you get paid before the closing. Do you do that? Okay. Or you put it under contract, you assign it, and at closing you get paid. Or a little of both. Is that right? Okay. So here, all we're doing is we're wholesaling the option, but it's not an ugly house. I don't need to have to calculate what the repair costs are. I don't have to calculate what an investor is going to pay for it. We're just literally wholesaling the option to a near qualified tenant buyer. And at some point, typically within 18 months or less, our tenant buyers are going to get financed and cash out. So we're not looking for renters. That's a little bit different model than some of you were involved with, right? Yes? Well, here's the other thing, and I got some cards. I'll throw some cards on the table or whatever. But if you are looking to get rid of any of your deals, and you want to still profit from them and not cut losses, let me know, because I can move these properties for you. And the beautiful thing is these are people who move in that have cash to put down. They're not putting a security deposit down of 1 month or a month and a half security deposit. They're putting $5,000, $10,000 down. And the beauty is, it's non-refundable. They walk They don't get that back. I love that. What a country. And why I say that is because of this deal. This is the all-time best description of what I just said to you. I picked this house up. Now this goes back about 9 years. It's a 3.5 bath, 3-bed, 1.5 bath, 1,500 square. At the time it was worth 78. The owners lived in it, moved out, rented it for 2 years, and they were tired of being landlords. The house was completely fixed up. It was new siding, new electrical, new plumbing, new windows, the whole bit. Okay? Didn't need anything. They sold it to me on terms for $67,000 and $650 a month. I did a 5-year contract with the seller. Okay? And I moved it at the first time, $82,900 and $850 a month. So a little cash flow, right? I got a difference. This is where the equity spread is right here, right? The difference between what I paid and what they were going to pay, right? That's the equity. Then I have the monthly spread. So what would the profit look like? Well, the thing is I had 5 tenant buyers in 5 years. The first tenant buyer evaporated. 4 months down the road, that's going to cost you.
Come on, Jared.
4 months down the road with the first tenant buyer, the check does not come for his rent. Now, I'm not far from Durand. I'm like 10 minutes from Durand. So I drive by the house. It's dark. I do the normal process of notifying him. I'm going to be entering the property in 24 hours, do an inspection, blah, blah, blah. I walk in. Everything's out. There's no furniture. There's nothing. In fact, the house is completely clean. And on the kitchen table was the garage door opener and the keys. That was it. I have no idea what happened to this guy. He walked away from $5,000. The next 2 tenant buyers were in there for a year. The second tenant buyer inherited a house from her aunt who died, and she got the house for free. Of course she's going to take that house. Tenant buyer number 3 and tenant buyer number 4 were in there each for a year. Unfortunately, the men of the house liked their liquor more than they loved their women. And they were gone. Not because of me, for them. I did spend about $400 to clean it up, to do a few little cleanup things. 5th tenant buyer bought the house, but from year 4 to year 5, the seller calls me up. His name is Dave. Wife Bethany. Dave says, Jim, is there any way you can cash me out early? I said, well, why? He said, I need like $15,000. I'm buying a hunting property up north. I'd really like to get this settled, you know. I said, let me get back to you tomorrow. So I happen to have a deal that cashed out in my Roth IRA. So what I did was, I said, I can get you the $15,000. We renegotiated the price. And what I did was, after I had 5 tenant buyers that put $40,000 down and walked away, I paid him $61,875, ready for this? On a lease purchase agreement, not a lease option. We dissolved the lease option agreement, put it into a lease purchase in my Roth IRA, so it was not self-dealing. And I did not do it in a land contract, because if you put it in a land contract in your Roth IRA, you pay UBIT tax. With a lease purchase, I didn't have to pay any tax. And so all the income was tax-free. In fact, Mike, you'll get a kick out of this. The legal team at Equity Trust couldn't figure it out, but I had to explain it to them. And so what did I make on this deal? I sold it for $90,000. And I made another, not just 40, I made another almost 40,000 tax-free in my Roth IRA. You like those numbers?
Yeah.
We're talking about a property at the time that was worth maybe $80,000 tops. Now this is why there's big paydays. I didn't take title of the house. I didn't rehab it. I didn't babysit a contract, no offense contractors. I'm sure you're all great. You understand what I'm saying now? So let me put it another way. I put a property under contract, and by doing that, I create equity out of thin air. That's what I did. Let me give you an example. If there was a $200,000 house, didn't need anything, let's just say a $200,000 house, and you could buy it for $100,000, would you do it?
All this.
All day. Put your hand up if you would do that deal. Keep your hand up if you would do that deal. If you would pay 125, keep your hand up. 150, getting a little shaky. 175, oh wow, look at that. 190, 200. I'm the last man standing. Let me ask you a different question. What if you could buy that $200,000 property for $200,000 and pay $1,500 a month, and every month you pay $1,500, the $1,500 goes to the price of the home. How many now would pay $200,000 for a $200,000 house? Every hand should be up. Because after year one, I have just taken $18,000 off what I owe. Year two, another 18. Year three, right? 1,500 times 12 months is $18,000. So that's a pure owner financing arrangement. That's a pure owner financing arrangement. I would do that deal all day. In fact, there are times where I pay more for the house just to get terms like that. Because even if I have to pay more for the property on contract, I'm building equity as time marches on. You with me? You like that? That's why I like sandwich options. This is another very typical deal. This is in Corona. At the time, this was a rental. In fact, I actually bought this guy's 2 duplexes from him. 6 months before, he said, Jim, I got a house I want to get rid of. I'm getting out of the business. It was a rental. Didn't need anything. I said, what do you want? He said, $70,000. I said, how much a month? $775. I said, I can do that if I give you nothing down. He said, great. Put it under contract for 7 years. I moved it for roughly 90 grand at the time, $950 a month. I had 3 tenant buyers that walked away from $5K each. That was $15,000 that I made. The monthly spread put another $12,500 or so in my pocket. I sold it for $119, and the balance to my seller was only $61,950. So I actually made a little under $45,000 on that property. And I'm an agent, so I listed it myself, so I got a commission on my half. I just doubled it, right? So I made total, add them all up, a little under $76,000. That was in 5 years on that deal. What if you just did one of those a year for the next 5 years? I spend about 3 to 5 hours a week in my business. That's it. And it's 6-figure income doing that. And I don't have to do deals where I live. I have a student in Seattle, all his deals are all around Nashville, Tennessee, from Seattle, Washington. Doesn't leave his house. Maybe you want to do that. I don't know. That excites me. Let's look at some basic rules. I don't like war zones. I don't want to force anything. If you have to force a tenant buyer or a seller into a deal, it's not a win-win-win. It's got to be a win for them and a win for you. Okay? Don't get emotionally tied. I have too many times where people will call me, Jim, these people are so nice, but there's no deal there. Yes, but they're so nice. They need help. We don't want a charity case. Don't burn bridges. I've actually had sellers come back a year later after they rented their property and said, Jim, I think I'd like your help now. Good. Because I didn't burn any bridges. So where do you find sellers like that? Well, by and large, and I'm just going to go through this quick, One of the things that I will tell you is if you are not using some kind of multi-touch, multi-type contact where you are physically getting in touch with motivated sellers, you're behind the curve. We do a lot of things with FSBOs. I like working with realtors who have challenged listings when they can't move a listing. If that listing falls within what I'll call the sweet spot, which I'll show you here in just a moment, we can help move those properties, and my agent friends, they get full commission. There's no diminishing their commission. I'm not going to take any food off any agent's table because I don't want them doing it to me. You with me? Yes?
Yes.
And the number one thing that stops people from getting paid is they're just afraid. That's what stopped me. I didn't think I knew it enough to get on the phone and start talking to sellers. Or landlords that want to sell some properties. And so a misconception is if you're not seeking to actually talk to a seller, anybody who is owning property, maybe they're leasing it, maybe they're renting it, but if you're not actively seeking to engage them in genuine dialogue, and you just hope they call you back or your virtual assistant back or whatever it is, you're way behind the curve. People, with all the technology we have, it's fascinating. When I pick up the phone and call a seller, they are happy to talk with me because they're tired of sometimes of all the mailings and all the voicemails that come in that are call this number and we can help sell your house kind of stuff. They don't want that. The personal touch wins the day. It wins the day. And again, I was doing 4 to 6 deals a month. I don't do that now. I don't have to. But people like that personal touch. Try to have a conversation. No slide dialing, no ringless voicemail. Talk to people. Human-to-human interaction is essential. So typically what I do is when I talk to a seller, I gauge their interest, I build some rapport, ask them about the property, establish their needs, what's important to them. If I know what's important to a seller, I can structure the deal to make it work not just for them, but for me. And I really like doing that. Define what we do, make offers. So when I said, let me show you the sweet spot, this is kind of what I like. The properties that I look for are going to stay above that $750 rent, typically above $80,000. Typically. That would be kind of on the low end. Okay. On the high end, I like to stay no more than $1,500 a month in rent. I've done $1,800, had a property down in Oxford here recently, it was $1,985 a month. Okay. And we had to lower the price to $1,700 a month to get interest. So right around that $250,000, maybe $300,000 price range would be the maximum. And again, first and second time homebuyer neighborhoods are the key. So if I could draw what that looks like, if this is the min and this is the max, right? If you think of this, I don't have it drawn out, but if you can think of this as like a bell curve. In between these two is really the sweet spot. If I come down to about the 200 mark and I come up to about the 110, 115 mark, those are absolutely perfect properties. And when they fall within what I'm calling and I'm defining as the sweet spot, those properties move fast. I don't even have to advertise them because we have a buyer's list. We have tenant buyers that are waiting for houses. And they have cash to put down. They're ready. So that's what I mean by the sweet spot. I market the property. I have a few minutes left. We'll just run through this. I've really never had good success with Facebook, or excuse me, with Craigslist. Facebook really for me is the key. Social media, we get about 80% of our tenant buyer leads through social media that come into our website, and then they pre-qualify themselves. Now, how many landlords here How many people here screen tenants? Raise your hand. Do you do it yourself? Do you talk with them yourself?
Yes.
Don't you love that? Isn't that a blast? Man, I get wore out. Man, I'm wore out. Three phone calls, man, I'm wore out. These people, they kill me. Right? So what I do is I show you how to set up a system where they pre-qualify themselves. You don't even talk to anybody unless they pre-qualify. Because when I started this business, the phone never stopped ringing. Hey, I saw your house, or hey, I saw your sign, or hey, I could never stop. I had to figure out a way to stop that. It's just sucking my time. I'm out fishing, man. Quit calling me. Literally. I'm out literally fishing. So that's one of the neat things that we do as well. And we show people how to do that. So I don't know if it's worth your time. If you give me just a few minutes, I'll tell you a little bit about what I do. If you're a veteran or a first responder of any kind, I just want to offer you something special as well tonight. I look at it from this perspective. If I just did one deal where I got a $5,000 option fee up front, I had a 200-month spread and $20,000 in equity, that would yield me about $30,000 in a 24-month span. Okay? Not taking title of the house, not rehabbing the house, not doing anything. Oh, and the beautiful part is, as a tenant buyer, they're responsible for repairs and maintenance. Not me. How you like that?
I love it.
You love that? I don't have to worry about that. 4 deals a year is well into 6 figures. Can you see yourself doing one in the next 12 months?
Absolutely.
Maybe? How about one every 6 months or one every 4 to 3 months? Well, fortunately, as an engineer, I put it into a chart for you. This is it. If you did this year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you did 2, 3, 4, 6 a year, this is what your annual income is going to be. And that's on small deals. That's on a $30,000 deal. I just showed you 2 deals that I made well into almost $80,000 on houses that were $120,000 houses at the end. Yes? Hello? Yes. Is this on? Yes. Oh, I don't have a mic. So then you have another interesting number, which is what I call unrealized gains. If you were to stack these in your pipeline, 2, 3, 4, 6 a year, this is how much additional income is still waiting for you in the future when you get cashed out. So typically at any given time, I have between $400,000 and $800,000 in unrealized gain. Typically. Meaning that if all the houses in my pipeline were to cash me out, I'd get an additional $350,000 on the back end. Because what the tenant buyer pays me and what I owe the seller at that time is that spread. That's the equity spread. Okay? That's why there's big paydays in that. And I also know people learn differently. Some can hear something and go do it. How many people are visual people? You got to see it. Okay? And how many need accountability? Where you need somebody to tell you, this is what you need to do. Right? So these are basically the 3 different ways in which people learn. And what I do is that's how I work with people in all 3 of those. Everything I have is on audio. There's about 20 hours of me talking to sellers on the phone. There's another 20 hours of me walking through houses with sellers, negotiating and getting the property under contract. That's all available. Me screening tenant buyers, everything is you can listen to. We also have everything on video as well, every aspect. Every form and contract that you would use has a video on how to fill it out. So all the training is on video, even again, just even the contracts, everything and how to fill them out. So if this is something for you, we can talk. If you're able to take just the ideas, if you can learn, if you can absorb the information, visual, audio, and study that and read that, then you can take the home study course and just start doing deals. Every contract you need is there as well. The forms, the study guides, workbook, everything. I used to have it all on big, loose leaf, binder, DVDs. Now everything is on a key drive. How many know of Wendy Patton? Some of you do. Wendy's a good friend of mine. I teach for her. You'll get one of her courses for free, which is how to do these deals working with realtors. The interesting thing between Wendy and I is I built my business almost exclusively working with sellers directly. She built her entire options business working with realtors. So you get the best of both worlds. Again, everything's on a key drive, so you just, you're not carrying these big books around anymore. And the home study course is $9.97. You get 3 courses with that if you're interested. If you need help, I can help you. I'll help you do deals fast. I coach students into doing deals very quickly. This is a guy in Florida, his name is Al Garcia. I don't expect you to read all this, but I do want you to hear this. He said, I was told here locally by a couple of title company know-it-alls this deal was not going to close. Even my attorney was skeptical. When I gave you the details, you calmly congratulated me as if there was nothing to be concerned about. You suggested putting an incentive to the seller to do one closing and get paid a single line item with a debt instrument, and that was a $54,000 debt instrument. I did just that. I cleared his first deal, I helped him clear $39,000. And he said, even my title company said this, you can't close this. No, it's because you got to structure it right. And I'll show you exactly what to do. Not bad for a first deal, $39,000. We do a boot camp typically once a year in Michigan. I'm going to be setting one up this fall in Troy, 3 days. You can come, it's lifetime for free for 2 people. And we go through everything. And when I say how many have you been to my boot camp? Anybody been to my boot camp? You've been to my boot camp? Pretty intensive, isn't it? So it's 3 days, and we're gonna give you everything you need to do that. So if you're willing to kind of get rid of the fluff, get focused, do things that are really going to make an impact in your income and in your life, I'll help you. Everything that you're going to get, the home study course, Wendy's course, everything is valued a lot, 19 grand. But if you can make 6 figures a year part-time, that's pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give that to you for $29.97. That's lifetime coaching with me. All the courses, boot camp tickets for life. However, if you're a veteran, if you're a first responder, I'm going to cut that in half. And here's what I typically do. Ready for this? I give you a 1-year money-back guarantee. The first deal you do, I'll coach you through it, and I'll split it 50-50 with you, and out of my half, I'll give you your $1,500 or $29.97 back. I used to do it for a year, now I do it for life. 3 years from now, you say, Jim, I got your stuff. I have 2 students I just met with 2 months ago. Both of them have the whole coaching system, everything. They haven't done a deal in 5.5, 6 years, and now they're ready. I said, I'm here for you. What do you need? So that's why I do it for life. Because, you know why? Because I know if you're like me, it took me 3.5 years to study everything before I made a move. And as a recovering engineer, I understand that. And it's detailitis. It's also excuse-itis. But detailitis leads to the disease of excuse-itis. And I know that because I had it. So I'm going to do it for a year. If you want to do that, you can reach out to me. Don't go on my website and order it. It's way more. It's $5 grand for the whole package. It's almost $1,600 just for the home study courses. I'll put some cards. I don't know where you want the cards, Mike. Thank you. So, any questions? Let's open it up. Let's open up the floor here. Q&A. Who has a question? Sir.
What makes a seller do this as opposed to just waiting for someone to come by and doing that thing change?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. You never really know. Some people do it because they want to push out their capital gains tax. Some people do it because they don't need the money. They like the cash flow. Maybe they were landlords for a while. There's a lot of reasons. Good question.
What happens if you're illiterate?
Say again?
Illiterate, you can't read or write.
You can't read or write? You mean like a tenant buyer or somebody doing it?
We cannot read or write.
That's not an issue.
People understand, why do you mean you can't read or write? We're dyslexic. So, people don't understand.
Well, first of all, in the hundreds and hundreds of deals I've done, I can't say that I've ever had that happen. I do have a tenant buyer who did buy it on terms, long-term from me, who I know he can't read or write, but he had a friend go through it with him. And here's what he did. You know what he asked me to do? He said, would you write out how the check is to be made so that he can follow how to write the check? Where there's a will, there's a way. Hand goes back here. Yes.
Question is, the buyers and agreements, do you put those people, agreements on?
Okay, so the question, and I'll repeat it so you can hear. With your tenant buyers, do you put your payments on like an ACH? Almost exclusively now, I don't get checks in the mail. I used to call this system to generate mailbox money, but because I don't get checks mailed to me, I don't worry about it. Somebody else had their hand up. Anybody?
I have one.
Yeah.
So, what questions do you ask to find out what's important to them?
So what questions do I ask a seller
Yeah.
to find out what's important to them? Well, typically what I'll do is I'll ask them, why are you selling? What are you wanting to get out of the house? How soon do you want to move if they live there? Does it need any repairs? I'm going to build some rapport, and I'm going to try to discern what's important to them by talking with them and having just a simple conversation. I have a script. Maybe what I'll do, I tell you what, would you like my phone script for free?
Yeah.
Would you like that? I'll email it to somebody. I'll email it to you, and you'll get an email.
Not Mike. Email it to Ed or me.
Okay. And then you'll have my script of what I actually say to sellers on the phone. Is that good?
Yeah.
Is that fair? Okay.
I do have another one.
Yeah.
Who, in your deals, like you represent the cash flow up there, you have a deal under contract for $650, you option it out for $850, $950, there's $200-300 a month spread. How, on a lease option, when you, or a lease purchase, whatever you want to call it, when you're taking control of the property, who's paying the taxes and the insurance?
Okay, so who pays taxes and insurance when you do a deal like that? The owner does.
Okay.
Because they're on title. And oftentimes their payment, not always, but many times their payment, as you know, Ed, is escrow, taxes and insurance. Well, we got two people who have a big payday. I'm kidding. No, let me follow up with that. One other interesting thing is when the seller moves, if they do occupy the property, we do have to take into consideration what the homestead exemption is going to do to the taxes to make sure that's covered as well. And also, when they go ahead and move out, they need to convert their policy to a non-occupied policy and add me as an additional payee. And we have that in our terms as well. Great question. What else? Yeah, Jordan.
So say you don't find a buyer, what's your exit?
Okay, say I don't find a buyer, what's my exit? Well, I mean, I can always tell the seller, you know, we're still looking. But here's the interesting thing. When I started out, and I'm staying in the deal as in a sandwich lease option, let's say. Sandwich lease option is I got a seller on one side, I've got the tenant buyer on the other, I'm the meat in the middle. So I am obligated to make payments to the seller at some point. Yes?
Yep.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes or yes?
Yes.
Okay. If I don't have a tenant buyer, what I did at the beginning is I negotiated with the seller that their first payment begins once I get a tenant buyer. Because I was too nervous to have to worry about paying them. But when I started marketing for tenant buyers, people come out of the woodwork. Let me ask you, how many, we have a mortgage lender here? Who's the lender? You're a lender. How many people in the country, percentage-wise, or out of 10, can't get financed today? You know?
10 people call me, and you're asking the percentage of those people finance that can't get finance. 50%.
50%. Actually, it's about nationwide, it's about 65%. So you have a population of 2 out of 3 people who can't get financed today. So one of the things we do with our tenant buyers is if necessary, we enroll them in a credit repair program to make sure they get financed.
Yes.
We have 3 mortgage lenders, and many times, and you can give me your information, I'll be happy to use you. Many times, we have the tenant buyer is interviewed with one of our lenders to make sure they're financeable in a reasonable period of time. Here's the next thing that I need to tell you, and then some more questions, we'll wrap it up. I'm always trying to do a longer term agreement with the seller, but the tenant buyer is always on a shorter term. Let's say I do a 5-year term with the seller. I'm only going to do maybe an 18-month with a tenant buyer. They have to get financed in a reasonable period of time. That's my goal.
That's
So
how we sold the
vet
same
them.
house
We
5
vet
times.
them very well. What's that?
That's how we sold the same house 5 times.
That's how, those circumstances I couldn't control. If somebody inherits a house for free,
Yeah.
they're going to move. That's a no-brainer, right? Great question. So, other questions? Yes.
Well, you know, I've noticed that hearing wholesalers talking this meeting, that they actually spend a fortune in trying to find half a dozen deals a year. Where they spend if not a fortune, they spend an awful lot of time trying to get this half a dozen deals a year. And I was just wondering how you were getting the houses to make the rest of it all work.
Well, that's part of the trading. One of the things that I use is I use some specific scraping software, and that is what brings in the leads. For about a year and a half, I've had a VA, virtual assistant, who has then went through those lists, and all I get is a warm lead. And that's a whole system that we can show you how to set up. It's not expensive either. I don't spend a lot of money on marketing. I just don't. I'd rather network. By the way, if you're a wholesaler and you are able to see that this might be a creative financing deal in whatever you're looking at, give me a call. I'll JV with you. I'll show you how to do it. We'll split it 50-50. How's that?
Oh, yeah.
And about half of my business traditionally has been referrals. A seller will tell their friend, hey, Jim helped me. You looking to sell your house, you don't need the money right away, good cash flow, call him. So referrals are a big part of the business too, but it takes a little while for that, doesn't it? It always does. But if you do build your business and you operate with integrity, and your word is your worth, and your worth is your word, people are going to come back and people are going to refer you, and that's an important part of the business.
It does seem to me it's easier to find a buyer with money than it is to find a property to put them in that you can make money out of. It's easy, in other words, that it's hard to put the program into effect. It's awful hard to find a seller who wants to give away part of his equity.
Yeah, not really. Not really. And by the way, don't just think microeconomics here, because again, I'm doing deals down in Birmingham, Alabama from my house. I'm doing deals where markets are not moving houses quickly, where inventory is starting to skyrocket. We're seeing inventories in some areas that are approaching 30-40% higher than what they were 6 months ago. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. Yeah.
It's just really a follow-up on that, besides your strategy of scraping that you're talking about, that seller. How are you identifying, is it just strictly your technology that you have?
The buyer or the seller?
Oh, when you're obtaining a seller to get a property.
What's the name of your program?
No, that's
You're asking a different question.
just why does that seller just call an agent? Hey, just sell my house.
Oh, sure, they can. They can.
So what are you identifying
if somebody like that gets to an agent first, I can't help them.
Sure, but then.
So if that house though is sitting on the market for 30, 60 days, let me tell you something, write this down. Time and circumstance change everyone's mind. Time and circumstances change everyone's mind. Two, they're gonna listen to somebody like me than when I first called them, when they first listed it. And by the way, I'm happy to work with their agent and help them get paid as well, their full commission.
So that's what you're doing, you're searching then for properties that in city.
One way.
or things like that.
Yeah.
And where this deal comes in, so like, I sell real estate for a living. And it's been a few years, but 5 years ago, every seller I met with, it wasn't every seller. Some people had equity because they actually had a down payment. But a lot of times it was like, hey, I owe this. How much do I need to sell it for so I don't have to write a check at closing? Pricing is like this. Now we are getting our little spring warm up and there's no inventory, so pricing is balancing out or is bottomed out for a period of time. But as soon as August, September comes again, it's going to start going back down. So his program is not for the person that has 50% equity in a house. His person is for the person that can't sell their house and put $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in their pocket. They owe 200 grand on a house that's worth 195. And for creative financing, he'll pay 200 grand for a 195 house because he's making 300 a month. Who cares?
Or more.
Well, not just to say it, how many realtors have that? If a realtor is moving real estate, I'm a realtor, I do a lot of real estate. If a realtor's moving real estate, they have houses they can't sell. And if they don't, they're lying to.
And if they bought a house in the last 12 months, they're negative equity already.
100%.
So if you're a realtor and you sell a bunch of houses, and you got one of those are potential leads right there. If those people want to move, because they're all negative equity. 20%.
I got one thing to say.
With low interest rates.
Long time ago, I took this man's class. I've known him for a long time, but I took his class a long time ago. My son took it. My oldest son, some of you guys know, took it. After that, the man does exactly what he says. He tells you he'll call you, he calls you. He tells you that he'll be there from now until the day he passes. He'll be there. He'll crawl on a cane if he has to, but he will be there. I promise you. Always answered the phone, always does what he says. I just had to throw that out. I had a lot of respect for this people.
Thanks, man. Thank you for having me. And if you're interested, do me a favor. You got my card. You can reach out to me directly. And if you're, again, a veteran or you're a first responder, I'm going to take half off for you because I respect it. Thank you so much. Question real quick?
Yeah, Jim, I'm wondering right now. I've been through this whole course 2 years ago from some public provider, and I have not done anything with it, but it was like deja vu. Well, I'm going to tell you the value. I paid $30,000.
Whoa.
And have basically failed at it because I couldn't pull the trigger. And the other side of that was my business is in fiber optics, and that's just going absolutely zonkers. 2 offices, 60 hours a week. I can't find time, but I'm going to come talk to you.
What's your first name?
Gordon.
Gordon.
In his office is in Shiawassee County.
Awesome. I have a student I just got off the phone with on a consultation. He's been a student for 1.5 years. After he got my course, I helped him do 3 deals within the first 45 days. Got his money back. But you ready for this? He signed up for a special course that he pays $8,000 a month where they're feeding him leads. He's stuck in contract for 2 more months. $80,000 to $88,000 in the hole. He's only made $100,000 total. He's $12,000 in the plus. I have 2 other students that are local, one in Flushing and one in Troy. They're 6 figures in debt because of gurus. I have to sleep at night. I'm not going to do that. So if you're interested, I'll help you. Thank you so much for having me.
We got 50-50, we're gonna have Jim draw.
Hold on.
He likes to draw winners. Last 4 digits, 6597. 6597, see Amanda. 6597. Here's Bernard for a closing.
Boom, boom. Look at that.
We got a winner right up front. All right.
I'm sitting in the right.
You know, I'm just gonna say this real plain and simple. What I want to encourage you right now, this is not the solution for every deal. But this is the solution for some very special deals. And if you can get those very special deals with this approach, it may make all the difference. I see Miss Bobby has her hand up. I'm just gonna